A lot of us have relationship fallouts, and one of the big reasons is because we don't feel good. More than ever, I have single women that are preparing themselves for marriage. They want to feel their best and they want to look their best. We need to rebuild that foundation so that you have the energy to get through your day and have purposeful, meaningful relationships, whether it be with your husband or your boyfriend. I'm not saying that your marriage will fail, but when you don't feel good, it's really easy to point the finger. And I've been there before. I ate perfect, I exercised, and then spiritually, I was not well. And when that system failed, I wanted to blame my husband for everything. And when I healed my spirit, I didn't see my marriage as the struggle anymore.
Welcome back to the Dear Future Husband podcast. I'm your host, Christian, and today I have with me Cara Clark.
Hey.
I think we have the funniest meet cute of any of my guests. We live in the same neighborhood, and Cara had posted, this sounds so funny even saying it, free rocks.
Yeah.
For anyone that needed them.
Pretty much gravel, but yeah.
Yeah.
No, they were design rocks.
Design rocks, yeah. They were elevated rocks. And I was at the point of trying to convince my husband that we needed to update the landscape a little bit. And I was like, I'm just going to get these rocks. They're exactly what we want. And then there will be like no contesting to the fact that we're going to do it. Lo and behold, we did something totally different. I still have the rocks. I didn't use them.
Well, good thing your little guy liked them.
Oh, yeah, he still throws them. But I got a friend out of it. And so I just thought that's so funny. And
yeah, and I remember too, it was like such a chaotic day for me. And I happened to just step outside and help you be able to scoop them. So I just feel like it really was divine intervention. I was like,
I was holding him, like had a bucket, and you're probably like, who is this woman? I need to help her.
No, I was like, let me hold the baby.
Yeah.
Give me the baby.
I'll take him inside. You go do your whole yard. My girls will watch him.
That is a funny meet, though.
That is. So, but it's led us here, and I was thinking about this too when I was prepping. I feel like we don't know that much surface level things about each other. Yeah. It's just been deeper interactions, which to me, my heart cries
like
out to that.
Sister, yeah. I agree with that. Well, the other part to the story was I was like, I'm prepping for a photo shoot tomorrow and like I'm a mess. And you were like, well, what kind of photo shoot? I'm like, it's for my book and we're trying to fit the whole thing in one day. And you're like, well, what kind of book? I'm an author too. And so I feel like that was like, oh, wow. Like other people are, in this too. Mm-hmm. You don't always see it.
Right. And you don't see like they're running around.
Right. Yeah. So we aren't that familiar with each other's service.
Yeah. But what I'll brag on her here. It's her book Wisdom about health and like nutrition. And I believe it's also ingredients as well.
Yeah. It's feel good way recipes for a better life.
I could not write that book. I've written a book, which shameless plug to both of those. Those will be in the show notes, but I could not write that book. You have a lot of wisdom I'm excited to share with people today. And with your background in your career path, but also being a mom of 4, married for how many years?
15 this month.
Oh, congratulations.
And a last minute trip to go, spend time together, the two of us.
Where are you going?
Just down to Florida for 3 nights.
Okay.
Yeah.
Florida's magical.
And it's so easy to get to.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of money, so you can do more things when you're there together.
I know.
Well, congratulations. So, we want to paint this parallel. You might come to this episode because you really want to know more about health and how to take care of your body. You may be getting married soon and you're like, I want my wedding bod. Or you might be thinking, I'm just still on this train of I want to know whether I'm single or married, how to nurture my relationship well. And I think there is a parallel. And what I'll start off by asking you about is, because I know you've seen this on both sides, is it's really easy to want to paint the picture externally of I have the fit body, I have the healthy marriage. And I feel like at some point that manifests as untrue, but it's also easy to fake it till you make it. How important, because you shared a little of your story with me, how important is it to take care of the inside first?
Yeah, I do truly think the internal eventually does reflect. Like there's no running from it. And so if we take the vanity approach, it's going to wear out different systems in the body and maybe not support us like hormonally, which, doesn't support us reproductively. And then, and then we fall into that cycle of what is health? What is health really? Is health, perfect chiseled abs, or is it lush, beautiful hair, or is it all of those? Because, the reality is, if you're supporting all the systems in your body, you could have more expansive health internally.
So you came from a athletic background too. So for me, I can attest to this too. It was easy for me to feel like, well, I'm working out, I'm like generally healthy, but nutrition wasn't at the forefront. Semi for lack of knowledge. And I think the food pyramids that we learn in school.
Wow.
Yeah. I was just like, well, don't eat cereal and cookies every day and you're doing a balanced diet. But I just didn't know. Do you feel like a lot of the people you reach today are like, well, one, I don't know how to have a healthy marriage because I've never seen it. And I don't know how to take care of myself because there's either so much information or so much misinformation.
Yeah, there's both. There's definitely overconsumption, and then it's hard to sift through on your own to figure out what's right and like what's supportive. And then, there's still a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of people, a lot of coaches, and I'm not putting down the word coach because I love the idea, especially as an athlete. Like, I think everybody needs a coach, but a lot of these coaches are gurus in the sense that they created something that works for themselves, and then they're trying to teach that to everybody. And that's not really the case, because we're super bio-individual. And if you don't ever learn like intuitive eating and intuitive living, then all systems will fail. And I mean, like, I'm not saying that your marriage will fail, but when you don't feel good, it's really easy to point the finger. And I've been there before, because God decided to bless me with a beautiful business at the same time he was blessing me with a beautiful family. And I wanted to raise my family, and I didn't want anyone else to. And so I was having to, struggle through that balance finding. And I always wanted to put the blame on my husband, and this might be getting too deep too fast, but
never.
Around like 32 years old, I wound up in pretty intensive therapy that we started as a couple, and then it really served me a lot better. And that led to getting help with integrative support and understanding. I mean, it led down some paths I really shouldn't even talk about because it was wrong. There was, there's always different paths, and I kind of dabbled a little bit, and I didn't know I was dabbling, but like in New Age. So like meditation and manifestation. And then when I went for like the biblical take on that, I actually learned about meditation as listening prayer, and manifestation as the visions that God gives us and not the world gives us.
Yeah.
And so when I was able to like really work on my own spirit, because I did everything right. I ate perfect. I exercised. I was exercising wrong for that stage of my life. I probably wasn't eating enough for that stage of my life. But like from a clinical standpoint, I was doing everything right. And then spiritually, I was not being fed. I was not being nourished, and I was not well. And when that system failed, I wanted to blame my husband for everything. Mm-hmm. And when I healed my spirit through listening prayer and God's divine messaging, I didn't see my marriage as the struggle anymore, Mm-hmm. So I do think it's connected, and that was a little bit of a longer story, and I won't go into the nitty-gritty of it.
Yeah.
But that was about 10 years into marriage where we kind of hit that like point of no return. You needed to move, you had to move forward. It had to be a different direction. Couldn't keep going the same direction.
Well, to me, I'm picturing like probably what you felt going to that point, and I think it's easy to make people the scapegoat, especially because, as you're saying, like on paper. So if you went to the doctor or the physician, they'd probably be like, well, all your labs look good.
Yeah,
you're healthy.
100%.
And then on the side of that, well, your marriage looks healthy. You have a family and a business. And that's why I love conversations like this, especially preemptive if you are single or dating, because there's so much that we don't know until we hit the rut. And then you are scrambling, well, like, what do I do and how do I fix it? What can I turn to? And I think it's a miss almost sometimes with the new age or even the feelings like expose, we go all there because it's really pointing to, hey, there's a problem, let's talk about it. But sometimes in the Bible Belt, not wanting to hate church is negative, but it's like, well, let's have conversations about how to do better, how to feel better, so we're not running to these other things. That's like, here, we have the answer.
I know. Well, and I was on the West Coast too, so
so you're around,
and with a lot of Christians too, and we're blind to it on some level. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. How does your marriage look different now? And how would you say you're, like, I know marriage is a two-way partnership, but especially speaking to women, I'm like, well, I want to make sure that I'm praying for my husband. I'm checking myself. Not that he doesn't have to, but it starts individually to make the two. So how do you nurture your marriage now so it doesn't go back to a place of blaming?
I feel like when we moved to Tennessee, which was 4 years ago, it was the first time in our life that we had to build the bond of our family together without his parents, his family, or like, we lived by my aunt and uncle, and nobody did anything wrong, but it was just us for the first time. And so there were no like missed lines of communication. It was just back and forth, and not, oh, your mom told me you said blah, blah, blah. Like, that was the worst feeling in the world. And so going back to like what really changed was like the direct line of communication should always be between the husband and the wife, not the circular, mother-in-law, father-in-law, mom, like the leave and cleave is so incredibly important. And also it was such a challenge in our situation. And so when we actually physically and demographically left, that direct line of communication changed. And I'm not saying that it was like ever his fault to begin with, or even my in-laws' fault, because they did end up here, of course.
And you're still doing good.
Yeah. But we had a year by ourselves, and that really like shaped our family union. With 4 girls really close in age, I just think the lines of communication were always getting crossed, and they were like, it was hard to communicate in a healthy state of like energy and not feeling burnt out. And and when the other thing that changed was the stage of life we were in. We had 4 girls in 5 years, and like bought a house and had 2 businesses. He has a business, I have a business. And my business too these days is like 5 businesses, because you don't just get to do nutrition services. You have to do media, and you have to do social media, and like it's so many, you write a book, and like there's so many different aspects to this type of business. But my husband is super engaged in all of it. He actually runs his own business, but a little bit more part-time, and works with me a little bit part-time, does all the stuff I hate, taxes, finances, like contract attorneys, does all of that stuff. And it's just easy to conversate. And now we both work from home. We eat lunch together every day. The house is quiet because the kids are all in school. And it's easy to like have direct line of communication now. But this is the first time ever that it's just flowed. And it's 15 years later. So there is hope, everybody.
And it gets better.
It really does. The love changes, and it's so much more closer to agape. It's not like this chemistry that it starts out as, I guess you can say.
Well, I feel like we replace attraction for gratitude in a lot of ways. And that's why I'll never tell people that are single like attraction is unimportant, because I would just be lying out of my teeth.
Development, everything develops.
But it can't be everything.
Yeah.
Because you could be attracted to someone that's not going to serve you, that's not going to build you, and you're just going to resent that person. So that's it right there.
Time of year, I reflect on like how we met, which was this time of year, and then we got married this time of year too. And like how that was God, and how that was prayerful, and like how we were connected. And it was right after I moved to California from Oklahoma, where I went to college. And a coach from my college in Oklahoma connected me to his high school teammate. So it's like God is always there. He pays witness to all of this. And like when you're prayerful and in line with that, then it's a lot easier to succumb to. But 2 of my biggest thing was, as a college athlete, like they had to spend more time in a locker room than me. I couldn't marry somebody that did not spend all that time character building in a locker room. That was like number one, and obviously just love the Lord. And those were the easy things about him. And then you're blind to everything else.
Right.
So I was reflecting on my current book of clients, and I don't take a lot of individual clients, but occasionally they come across my desk, and I know there's a connection. And more than ever, I have single women that are preparing themselves for marriage. And by that, they want to be healthy. They want to have energy. They want to feel their best, and they want to look their best. They don't want to get in these serious relationships without feeling their best, because health to them obviously means feeling good about how they look in clothes, feeling good about how they move, feeling good about like going for a hike with somebody, that kind of stuff. But it also means like healing underlying chronic conditions or hereditary things, or, you know, getting their nervous systems ready to expand and love. And so it's about like being clinically well, but like spiritually well and ready. And I think a lot of times when people have like traumatic pasts or experiences as children with, you know, marriages that they're involved in with their parents that didn't work out, or that weren't healthy, then it's hard for them to get past that and like see themselves as a partner.
Yeah.
And these are women that are like high up in their companies, like so successful on their own, and still know that there's a piece missing.
Yeah.
And so getting healthy for them is having really healthy labs and feeling energy and not feeling burned out by their jobs and career choices, and feeling good about how their bodies look, because that's a huge part of it. Like feeling, I always say the feel good approach. And that just means that we can assess ourselves without necessarily getting on a scale. Like we don't need measurements outside of our own like feelings to know how we're doing.
Right.
So once they start to feel good and have clarity and have energy and see their body composition changing, then it gives them a level of confidence to find somebody that is a good match for them, rather than somebody that might be a little bit more of a, what's the word? Subtle.
Yeah.
I hate to say that word.
Oh, I've said it plenty.
Okay.
And I'll preface, like, it doesn't just mean this person is less than you, but you're approaching it with a mindset of,
right,
I can't go after this because I'm lacking in some way.
Because I look like this.
Yeah. And it's not fair to that person either, because then you're labeling them something that the right person wouldn't label them.
Exactly.
So I totally think that's a wise approach for those women coming to you. And I know at times I've felt insecure, or I have been in a silly mindset. Like, you just show up differently.
You do.
You talk about different things. You're not as ambitious. And there was something.
Or you don't have capacity. You have capacity for like work. You don't have capacity for like work and love and what goes into building a strong foundation in a relationship, which is a lot of work.
I heard a podcast this week of this doctor, and I'll have to plug his name in here because it was my first mention of him, but he was talking about secure attachments too.
Yeah.
Going back to like the clinical, the traumatic, and he said they'll have high achieving women, but when they get in relationships, they fall apart or they're disinterested. And so I think there's so many correlations there. And I'll say my husband and I talk about this because I love a well-researched study. I love diving into the heart and the mind. He's like, but you know, Jesus can heal anything. I was like, I do. I fully believe that. But if we're going to talk about it, like, I like to know why or learn.
That is fun.
It is. And think about, look what Jesus did.
Yes.
He felt this. So anyone listening, don't feel like if you're like, I'm not sure why I'm doing this, this, and this. I think there's wisdom in sorting it out with a trusted voice. But you're not going to be stuck. Like, it's not an Enneagram approach.
Right.
Well, I'll always be this way because I'm a
box or label.
Whatever. Yeah.
And I'll tell you a little bit how I work through clients and my membership now to rebuild the body's foundation so that our relationships are more sound, so that we're better stewards and, you know, who we serve. When we pray, sometimes the answer is not always like going to be present right directly in front of us, but God will open a path. He'll light a path that could lead you to other people that could help you, that could, you know, help you, guide you, or have an answer for you, or, you know. So that's what I always pray with my clients, is that the path becomes clear. Not that like this is the end all, but there's a clear path. And that comes, you know, that has to do with the relationships, that has to do with the food they choose, all of it, practitioners they use outside of me. But I always work on building the foundation physically, because what happens is when you're drained, and when I use the term burned out a lot, and that's actually a scientific term with measuring stress. So there's 3 states of stress, and the third and final is burnt out. That means our adrenals aren't producing the hormones they need to produce, our cortisol's in balance, that kind of stuff. So that really is a scientific term when I say burnt out. it's also something that I think we can connect to because we feel,
Yeah, everyone knows what you're talking about.
And so
when you say that.
Clinically, I have to rebuild that foundation so that people have the energy they need in their everyday lives. And I come at this with like a performance mindset of like, as an athlete, I did so I could perform, but like I still want to perform in my everyday life like an athlete, not a competitor, but like an athlete. And so like we need to rebuild that foundation so that you have the energy to get through your day and have purposeful, meaningful relationships, whether it be with your husband or your boyfriend or your siblings. I think a lot of us have relationship fallouts. And one of the big reasons is because we don't feel good. We don't have capacity, so if we don't feel good, we don't have capacity for a lot of people. We don't have a lot of tolerance for people. We don't have the energy to work through things. So rebuilding that foundation consists of getting the food right. So I teach eat, and this goes for women especially. Men are they can be a little bit more lenient in how they build their foundation because their hormones turn over every 24 hours and ours turn over about every 28 days. And, we sometimes just don't even know when our hormones are turning over. But anyways, so eating within the hour of waking up is really important for women, especially cycling women.
I'm so glad you said that. That was one of my rapid fire questions.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I want to keep you on that loop, but now that you mention it, because I've heard so many things of
fasting.
Mm-hmm. But then I've also heard that's better for men. And this stage of life, like right when I wake up, I have to eat something. But I've gained a little weight, and I started beating myself up this week. Like, well, maybe I just need to wait longer.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I feel like there is a part of listening.
There's
to
a point of weight gain in pregnancy too. But yeah, absolutely. As women, if we don't use fuel from food when we wake up, we're going to be using fuel from our adrenals. So we're going to be using stress hormones. So you want to burn out fast, try intermittent fasting. As a cycling woman, that's one of the most damaging things. And there's plenty of new research about this. Originally, when they were studying intermittent fasting, it was on men and postpartum women. You can't do studies on cycling women or babies. And so like we often get these skewed opinions, which are not statistics. And I know you said you like statistics, and I do too, because I'm very science minded and God gave me that mind. I'm not good at any other subject. I was terrible at school, but I knew science, and it baffled me how well I understood it. And then when I realized like my kingdom assignment, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense why I did science fair projects and then standard level everything else.
Do you do any of the volcanoes experience?
Yeah, I did. I did. I love the volcano stuff, but I did this depth perception one, and it was like one of the most amazing projects I ever did because it actually explains like how, as an athlete, when you go in different size facilities, how your touch is different. So like if the rim is right in front of the wall, which, is a small arena, then you're not going to shoot the same as if the wall is like 20 feet behind or if there's stands. So anyways, it was so relevant to where I was in life. And like my daughter played in an indoor soccer field last weekend, and they looked so weird for the first 20 minutes.
Never seen that.
Yeah. So like the goal was almost against the wall. So anyways, like a full size indoor field, not like indoor soccer. But anyway, I loved science, and I realized, after college when I had to pay to study, that was the avenue I was going to take. But yeah, so intermittent fasting is a big no. Eat within the hour of waking up and every 4 hours after that to protect our blood sugar. So the number one thing that we need to consider in protecting our body from stress, that we aren't even aware of, is managing our blood sugar, our glucose levels. So the next way to do that is always combine your macros. And so one thing that people always take away from me is never eat fruit alone, for example, because fruit's a carb, and it's a great carb, and it's a gift from God. And I'm so pro carbs, way more than the average nutritionist and health expert. 50% carbs, 25% fat, and 25% protein.
Okay.
And this is protective of our endocrine system. So
that's specifically for women.
And I'm going to plug a doctor who actually, the one who teaches Fast Like a Girl. So the fasting that she teaches is not really intermittent fasting. It's a little bit more unique, and it's tailored for healing, not so much, in my opinion, not so much managing your health, but healing. And she said humans have one thing in mind, and that's survival. So our body adapts to help us survive. So like, as if women become fat and want to lose weight, they have to address the fat in the first place because it was actually a protection mechanism. It wasn't there to hurt them. It wasn't there to make them look bad. It was protecting their hearts and other organs in their body from retaining. Okay. So it stores in our fat cells as protection. And a lot of times this is like, it's lifestyle choices, don't get me wrong, but sometimes it's trauma and sometimes it's emotions that we never work through and that kind of stuff. So eating 50% carbs, 25% fat, 25% protein protects our whole hormone system for survival, but also women have a secondary thing. Men just survive, women also reproduce. So there's two levels of women's health as far as like God created us to survive and to reproduce. And so we have to consider our health in those regards. So, you know, we can't eat like men and work out like men and expect to be healthy like women. It just doesn't work that way. But the industry kind of pushes us that way. Like lift heavy. And I'm not against weights. I love weights. I love resistance training. Or like do this cardio or whatever. It's like we have to be able to manage and intuitively know what to do.
Yeah.
And I even go back to if somebody's really struggling like with fertility or reproductive health, and not even always fertility, but like PCOS or endometriosis, that kind of stuff. Like, how do we get the inflammation out? There's different ways to do that with food, anti-inflammatory approach, but also how we exercise. Are we causing more damage to our stress hormones? Or are we mitigating what could be worse, you know? So working out according to our cycle is something we should be familiar with, you know? Women's studies should include women's hormones, not men's.
Yeah. Just because they're so different and so helpful. Do you, I'm getting to all my rapid fire questions and I need to wait because then I'll let you just go to those. But I was going to ask you, so dinner time with the 25-50, do you have to alter your meals or do you alter portions? Because I mean, it's 5 girls, one.
I know. And what's funny is my 2 older girls out-eat my husband for dinner because they're so active.
Stage,
Yeah, and honestly, most of the things I make have like the carbs are the side, and so they fill their plates accordingly. And I don't really push. My kids eat like grown-ups, like they've never really eaten kid food or like all starches like a lot of kids do. So it's never something that has to be forced in our house. It's a little bit intuitive. But a lot of times they'll be like, I'm still hungry. Well, did you eat 25% protein? And I don't say 25%, but I'm like, did you eat about that much protein? No, I probably had a little less. Okay, well, eat your fist size of protein.
How many grams per day do you aim for with protein?
It just depends on like your weight and how many calories you're eating. So generally speaking, people will say like half their body weight in protein. Or actually they say like 1.2 or 1.1. I know it's a very like calculated answer, but so it just depends on your size. So if you're eating like 20 grams of protein every meal, then 80. So that's much smaller than the fitness industry recommends. But part of the reason is because the kidneys have to work really hard to break down protein. It's not just its macro calculation, you know? It's a lot more than that because protein never gets a bad name because it doesn't like sound bad, you know?
Well, except for when I was in middle school and the Honey Nut Cheerios commercial. That's the only time I saw a bad rep because I was like, yeah, cholesterol's bad. Honey Nut Cheerios helps. I was like, cholesterol, animal. Okay, I got to eat the cereal.
Animal protein.
And that was like the only time. So I was like, no, you're right of Honey Nut Cheerios. And now I'm like, that was not.
You're right. Now that I think of it, you're totally right.
But just the Honey Nut Cheerios is the only culprit. I want to ask a question going back to the other side as we talk about the relational dynamic. What can an unhealthy body image, I know body dysmorphia is really talked about nowadays and mental health, but like what if someone's struggling with anorexia or something along those lines? We know, as you've alluded to, fertility and items like that, but even just in the relational dynamic, how can that separate a husband and wife?
Well, because it can take over our thoughts and it can control us. If we are obsessed with the patterns of the food we eat for the numbers or the way we think they make us look, then it's all consuming. And I think the downward spiral of, eating disorders, and I can say this because I was there. So after college, I myself went down a downward spiral of an identity crisis is what it was for me. Is I was Cara, the basketball player, and then I was like, Cara in California? Okay, this is like a whole new world.
Yeah.
So I definitely dabbled in that. And as I was consumed with counting calories and like trying to create this perfect body, I was overcome with God, actually, a very strong message from a spiritual director who's very Christian, and said, if you kept your prayer journal as good as you did your food log, you'd be a saint. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was so eye-opening. But I do want to say for people that are struggling with that, and I think it probably happens to us a lot more when we are single, because there's so many things out of our control that we kind of hope and dream and wish for. And so that is one thing we can control, is always go back to how do you feel and how do you want to feel, and visualize yourself feeling the way that you want to feel, and then visualize what that takes to get there. And the reason I say visualize is because it takes a long time to like create this life that, is fully God, fully you. And when we visualize how we want to feel, then it starts to become more apparent the ways to get to how we want to feel. And so overcoming a disordered eating pattern or major disordered eating takes way more than just food, Because
you can just throw it in but still be thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that might could even lead to bulimia or something. Oh, for like if you're trying to do it and then your body. That's a good point. I feel like I have personally so many other questions I could ask, but I want to get to the rapid fire. Unless there's anything else you feel like you wanted to elaborate on.
No, I shared my food philosophy, and that's pretty, standard across the board. Like generally works for 98% of people. The 2% that have chronic illness that's undiscovered by, conventional labs, there's a little bit more of a bio-individualized approach that I use. But I teach all of this in my membership. I teach building a stronger foundation through food and active supplements. And what I mean by that is like activators that work with your body and not for your body. Our bodies were designed in God's likeness. You think that they had all these problems, and yet we're over supplementing. So like people move from conventional conventional care to therapeutics, which is great, but then they're doing the exact same thing and like taking stuff for certain symptoms. And I teach to activate the body to work, so that you don't have to have all these tier 2, tier 3 Band-Aid supplements.
Yeah.
So building the stronger foundations, food, it's supplements, it's exercising according to your stage of life or cycle. So that's all I kind of want to leave them with. I want them to desire more and come check me out.
I was going to say, we can go ahead and plug now.
Yeah.
What's your
Cara Clark Nutrition across the board, website.com. Instagram, Pinterest. We're doing a lot more on Pinterest, blog, all of that. YouTube. I have videos on YouTube that explain this philosophy in depth.
Okay. Well, we'll link to those in the show notes, but I can attest she's so knowledgeable and the recipes are really good. I had the cookies. Those are great.
More food today, but ran out of time.
I was going to say you don't have to, but then I can't.
So how are you?
Yeah. Thanks for coming over. Can you bring food next time? No, actually when Arden was, I have so many friends named Cara. I don't know why, like within the last 2 years since I was doing a podcast with Cara. He's like, which one? I was like, the one that made the yummy food for us. I was like, oh yeah, Cara. So it is good. I will attest to that. But check out her account. I know I have some friends and people that have chronic illness or, just irregularities that they want to know more, not sure where to turn. So that's really great to share that. Our rapid fire questions, you can do like a 1 to 2 minute answer if you can. And some of these I know you've even shared about, so I feel safe to ask them. But castor oil, I've heard so many things about that. Hair, I've even heard you put in your belly button for detox.
Castor oil.
Yes.
Okay.
I said it wrong, didn't I?
Like, haven't heard of that one. Yes.
What are your thoughts on it? Safe?
Yeah, it's been around for thousands of years. It's Ayurvedic, and Ayurvedic medicine originally was kind of just really tapped into the nature of the body, and that there's 3 different natures of the body. But castor oil is what would be called a tridosha, meaning like it works for all 3 doshas of the body.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And it really is like the bee's knees. Like it does all the things that I read. In fact, I started on castor oil because I was activated in my body. So my eyebrows were thinning and my hairline was getting a little bit like farther back, which, you know, in my look, it's not a big deal. I have a lot of hair, whatever. So I got it for vanity reasons. I got it for the eyebrows and the hairline. And then I was like, well, if it works for that, then what else does it work for? And so then I went down the rabbit hole of the castor oil wraps and the helping eliminate the toxins from the liver, and then like even helping to warm the reproductive system and endocrine system, just like thyroid.
Do you wrap it on your abdomen?
Yeah, depending on like what you're trying to utilize. So like usually I do mine over the liver, but like I have a daughter, a teen, who would put it over her abdomen. A lot of clients do it on their thyroid. So I really do love castor oil and all of its uses.
Okay. Might have to do one of those wraps post-pregnancy. Red light therapy.
Yeah.
I've heard that maybe not all light therapies are essentially equal, but I don't know.
They're not, because the wavelengths has to be, I can't remember the exact number, but, you know, I wouldn't buy it on Amazon. That's the one thing I'll say is when I promote stuff, I might have put it on my Mother's Day.
There is, I'll take that off.
I know. Shoot. I guess I was a slug, but typically the ones sold don't have the correct wavelength. I like the ones that, like Loom Box was created by an MD, and so was the castor oil wraps I recommend. They both left conventional medicine to do, you know, integrative. But anyways, the Loom Box is great because it's handheld, portable, and I'm not just plugging that because there's the other ones, Juve, and the reason I'm saying Loom Box is I think it's the most affordable, good wavelength on the market, and it has red light and near infrared light. Near infrared light is what gets into the deep tissue. So I always use both settings at the same time. Red light is more like topical. It's like scratches or like blemishes or breakouts or just, you know, overall like collagen production on that dermis. The near infrared light gets deep tissue.
Okay. So just like rejuvenation.
Yeah.
Okay. Sunblock. I don't know your thoughts on this, but I've heard.
Well, I am a scrunchy mom, you know, not all crunchy. And my kids are really white. And I say that because if you're looking at me, you would think like, oh, that can't matter that much, because I never needed sunblock. And I still, you know, I was always aware of being in the shade, you know, but I'm the type of person who gets darker in the shade. Anyways, with my kids, I use sunblock if we're on vacation or if we're on the lake all day. But just for a soccer game, no.
Okay.
They take their sunblock. They eat a smoothie before their game. They have antioxidants. They have diets high in antioxidants. Carrot oil is one of my favorite, like crunchy alternatives. And taking zinc is helpful. But yeah, we take our sunscreen more than we apply it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'd never heard that until maybe a year ago. And I was like, I'm black seed oil.
Really careful about how we share about sunscreen.
Well, put that one on social. But yeah, I was just curious if that.
Yeah, we were on spring break in Florida though, and I did my kids a disservice. We did not lather up on the first shady day enough, and all 6 of us burned. Even me, it was like the worst burn of my life. So you can imagine my towhead fourth child with blue eyes and blonde hair. It was rough. She had to get long sleeve bathing suits.
That's the worst, especially at the beginning of a vacation. This one I saw you post about, and I've been doing all week, and it's gone better than I thought. I haven't been wearing my deodorant.
Oh, nice.
But I did go to the gym. I took a shower after the gym this morning. But you were sharing. I'll let you share.
Well, what did you try? Did you just stop wearing it?
I just stopped wearing it. I'd love to, especially for filming days or something, I'd love to get something additional because I don't want to be on camera with.
For sure. Well, but like
nervous, but
yeah, I know the sweating is a good thing. So the sweating from our armpits indicates that our lymphatic system is actually pretty healthy. We have several lymph nodes that run through here. And if we block those from sweating, then our body's actually going to overproduce in that area, and then they're going to become inflamed instead of coming out. So like it's counterintuitive. You've been extra sweaty.
We like when I was younger, especially, and I'd wear like a lot and wasn't like careful about the ingredients. Like I would have it where they felt like inflamed, or, like, itchy.
Yes. Rashy, itchy. Yeah. And I'm not altogether against deodorant at all. There's plenty. I listed a bunch of natural ones, but I think it's helpful. The limes really works.
Lime?
Yes. Like sliced limes, put it under, like, get yourself ready. Like, it'll help regulate your sweating. It'll help neutralize the smell. Apple cider vinegar helps to neutralize the smell. Baking soda helps to neutralize the smell. But the truth is,
smell was indicative of a problem.
Yeah. Okay. That's the truth. So the truth is, if you have bad body odor, no, you're right. I love that you remember that. It's a sign that there's some liver burden, which is usually hormonal.
Okay.
So it's usually, I mean, I say like in order because people always want to blame hormones like they're the scapegoat, but we have to get to the root of things. So it's kind of an indication that there's something off.
Okay. Because I tried it and I was like, well, Cara, we'll try this, especially because I'm going to see you this week. And I was surprised. Like, there was days when I worked out and I could tell there was sweat. So I would clean that up.
Yes.
But I didn't have the smell as much as I thought.
Right.
Especially more what I thought I had just because I was used to it.
I know. A lot of things we do because we're used to doing it, but we never thought twice about it.
Yeah. So I was like, well, yay, that's good. I feel good job, body. I asked about fasted intervals. Okay, 2 more questions. The food type diet, how accurate is that, and how much would that alter your...
With your blood test?
What did you say? Food type?
Yeah. And do you like how I know? I'm on your wavelength.
Yeah,
like
I can tell because you look at me, I'm like...
The day we met.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. The blood type diet.
Yeah.
How much... Not to say it's true or untrue, but like how much weight would that carry?
The only thing I put a lot of weight into on that is who can be vegetarian and vegan and who can't.
Okay, because type A.
So you could actually
6'3" husband that loves meat.
What's his blood type?
He is either an A. His mom is A positive too, so he's either an A or an O.
Okay, so O's and B's need a lot of meat and a lot of like animal protein. A's can get away with more plant-based protein. Everybody needs protein, but A's can get away with being vegetarian, vegan. In my opinion, in my experience, it used to be one of the questions I asked on my assessment. So I do consider it, but I think of it more in terms of like meat and no meat.
Yeah. Can A's digest carbs more readily if they do more vegetarian? Okay. Curious about that. That makes me feel good. So eating a lot of hash browns and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm just going to swell up.
Yeah.
In all areas, not just my belly.
Make sure you're still eating some protein.
Yeah. There we go.
Combining your macros.
And then worst foods for like inflammation, chronic, like what are the foods you're like, just stay away from?
A lot of times it's bio-individual on what can be worse for inflammation. Like some people are eating really healthy and they're still inflamed. And sometimes it can be like nightshades or eggs, like foods that could be superfoods for other people could be inflammatory for others. But on, the general note, which people get annoyed to hear about, if you are super inflamed, the first thing to remove is sugar, alcohol, dairy, and gluten.
What about caffeine? Would you? Is that really an inflammatory?
Not really. Actually, caffeine can help to eliminate waste, but I think that it's important to use organic coffee and carefully resourced, sustainable resourced caffeine. Like I'm not a fan of any energy drinks whatsoever, but tea and coffee can be extremely beneficial to our health.
Okay. And what would the inflammation kind of lights to pop up to be aware of for someone listening?
Brain fog is a huge one for inflammation. We always think like belly fat, but inflammation at its core is also protection.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's water. It's water going to an area to protect. It's water to protect the fat cells because those are there for protection. Adaptation is protection.
Is the pain kind of like a sounding alarm?
Kind of. Yeah, exactly. Overstress. The pain is like the burnout version of stress. Yeah.
Again, I love to listen and find out more about this stuff. One, so we can be in tune with our bodies and our minds, our hearts. There's a big one here. But thank you so much for sharing this wisdom. And I would encourage anyone to follow along with Cara, one, because she's awesome. She's been such a great friend and, giving me rocks. And you bring me food.
Rocks.
If you want to be my friend, this is how you get to my heart. But thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.